Welcome to another episode of Music Pro Musings with Danny J. Lewis. Now, in this episode, I'm going to talk about a subject that some people get riled up about, some people are bored of hearing about, and that's AI or artificial intelligence. And I've been following this subject for quite a long time. Now, 7.5 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, I was working at PPL and I was working on data projects, so music data projects, working with some very talented people, including a data scientist who had some fantastic contacts within the world of data science. And what we did was we put on a kind of music and data evening at the PPL office in London on the top floor. And we invited various guests from the world to the venue. And it was a fantastic evening. We had a whole bunch of people there presenting in real life and a range of different subject areas, including music metadata. AI created beer, and it actually tasted good. And then we also had remotely dialing in from Berlin somebody who was demonstrating what at the time was incredibly cutting edge technology. And what it was enabling the person presenting to take on the appearance of Barack Obama in real time, in a way, real time kind of deep faking, also Donald Trump, and also taking on the personality of their voices in real time, 7.5, maybe 8 years ago, long time ago. So this technology has had a lot of time to mature and become incredibly, incredibly powerful. Now, it's really mainstream now, isn't it? Everywhere around us, we see probably the cleanest and most obvious manifestation of this is AI-generated art. And it's everywhere, so album art across the download stores, lots of people using AI-generated art. They're avoiding commissioning an artist to create that art. They're using a service and they're generating it, and it's then used at speed. The variations that can come out are so incredibly fast compared to if you actually commissioned an artist and they created variations. But there's no denying that there's a kind of soulless vibe to some of these things. But yes, they're getting better. And then it's a case of, do you want to be somebody who is using that really obvious stuff to kind of show off your wares? So I did use AI generative art for some sleeves for a period of time. I was one of the first to do it. But then over time, I just started to feel like I was kind of cheating the audience in a way. And I felt that I wanted to take it back to basics and do something that was unique that I created. Originally, I commissioned a designer to put everything together for Just Underground. They did a fantastic job, but I think over the years, things have changed, the context has changed, so I needed something different. And I did do a DIY thing, which is very simple, but I'm happy with it. And I'm happy because I did it from scratch without the assistance of any of these technologies. Now, I'm not saying that it's wrong to do, because I'm going to talk about some of the things to do with AI that in some respects can become like a partner, a co-pilot and that's why Microsoft, I think, came up with the name that they've got for their AI. So, it's the capability of something to supplement what you do. I think that's where the positives are. But, the video world is getting incredible. There are services out there that can render incredibly realistic looking video and also incredible looking kind of CG renders of planets that don't exist and so on. And the technology is just encroaching everywhere. We are on the threshold of a whole new world. Now with the music, the AI generated music compositions are getting better and better. And even to the point where there are songs that are created and singers who don't exist that sound realistic, and they sound full of passion, full of reality. It feels like it's real people singing music. It's incredible. But it's just making it so easy to do it. And where's the enjoyment? On the previous podcast, I talked about how it's so important to create because of the enjoyment of the process, so that it's soothing, it's therapy. If you're making music using an AI generative tool, that aspect is no longer there for you unless you get a great deal of satisfaction from training something and prompting it to get those results. And yes, there is a degree of enjoyment from that process. I've done that. I've used it in a number of different ways, and it can be great. So we're at this point where anybody can be creative if they can access the service or if they pay for it. The varying degrees of complexity and quality come, the more you spend the money, generally, the better it gets. So there's that. Then you've got in the world of development, coding, where application developers traditionally have had to code and then get peer evaluation of their code, somebody else checking what they've done. Now they can get an AI agent to check their code, in some cases even suggest the code. And then we're heading to a point where programmers are facing threats as well. But then there's always going to be a transitional period where, in a way, there has to be a hybrid, that humans are going to be there to, in a way, mentor these AIs. And that's where we're going to start to see the way that this world is going to go. And you will see a shift. There will be changes in people's roles. Some would argue that it's going to create the spare time to do the things that we've never had time to do. That's what this thing could do. It could benefit in that way. But there are also some kind of ideas that we could also be heading into brand new territory creatively. And, if I think about musical genres, there hasn't really been anything radically amazing for a long time. You think about standout moments in music history, that you had the whole kind of rock and roll thing, the 60s, 50s, 60s, and then various other different kind of journeys along the way. And we had electro, then we had hip hop, then we had house, then we had other variants, spinning off of there, drum and bass, jungle. Then moving more kind of recently, not that recent, last couple of decades, basically dubstep, which is quite radical. These were new styles. There hasn't been anything new really since then. When I think about moments in music history, people, like genres like punk, for example, which definitely seems to be back on the rise, could it be that these AI generative technologies could enable us to come out with something new that potentially we couldn't do before? And because of the way that the AI kind of thinks is different to humans, it could well be that they come up with suggestions. And I wonder, I'm pretty sure it's happening at the moment. There'll be some company somewhere that's building a technology which is in some respects a jam partner for a musician. So for example, if you're a guitarist, it could be a bass player that joins in with your playing in real time. It could be you're a drummer and it's a percussionist, and they play in real time. They adapt to everything that you're doing. So it's more of a live thing. Because I think certainly recorded music, I think in some respects in the future may need to adapt as well, because I think the younger generation are going to be used to stuff that is going to be more tailored to them. So if you have an artist that's recorded one specific version of a song, maybe they want to have that customized. And that could happen through some of these AI technologies in the future. But you have a younger generation that are going to be way more interested in this new world, and a younger generation. We used to have things like Guitar Hero and stuff. You have these games, these kind of musical rhythm games. In some respects, it's kind of the modern equivalent of that. You can jam along, do something, and then a virtual musician can jam along with you. It could well be, you're talking about once the technology develops sufficiently, you could be on stage, using some form of virtual reality, jamming with the dead artists that you love, on stage with Prince, with Michael Jackson, everybody, and they're performing exactly the same way, and you're joining in with them, and maybe your voice is transplanted and turned into somebody else. Maybe you're a man and you become Beyonce. Maybe your voice shifts in real time, but you get the enjoyment of being there in that moment with these people. So I think, we are on the turning point here. There is going to be a whole new world, which for those of us who are from the past are going to see, they're going to just think, oh my gosh, this is way too out there. But you've got to consider the younger generations, the ones coming up, are going to be way more susceptible to it. Now, equally, I do think, that there are going to be some people that will, in some respects, move away from this, and we may even get geographical locations where people deliberately get off of technology and they go back to basics. So we could have communities of people going back to the ways of bartering and livestock and farming, just avoiding technology, which kind of reminds me in a way of that film, The Village. I don't know if any of you have seen that film, the M. Night film. It's another one of those kind of twist movies, but it was about a bunch of people that did want to escape away from normality and live as they used to in the past. So it's the same vibe. I think it's very forward thinking. I think that could well happen. But we are in uncharted territory. I think there is a lot of opportunity with regards to AI. And I think it's an incredibly exciting area, and there are some aspects that I have been participating and will do some more on a kind of work, day job, kind of corporate approach. And it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. I think in some respects, the way my brain works is the way the AI training works. So I think it's a very, very exciting area. So I would say don't be afraid. Let's see where this goes.